Iran looks powerful from the outside, a country with vast oil reserves, a large military, and a government that has survived decades of sanctions and international pressure. But beneath the surface, something is shifting. Prices are rising faster than wages. The national currency is losing value. Protests are spreading across cities, and tensions with foreign powers are climbing once again. In 2026, Iran is facing one of the most complex moments in its modern history. To understand what is happening, you have to look beyond headlines and examine the forces reshaping the country from within. Because Iran's current crisis is not just political, it is economic, social, technological, and geopolitical, all unfolding at the same time, and the outcome could reshape the entire region. Every crisis begins somewhere. For Iran, much of the pressure starts with the economy. Inflation has been steadily rising, making everyday life more difficult for millions of people. The national currency, the Iranian rial, has lost significant value over time. When a currency weakens, it affects everything. Imported goods become expensive, food prices rise, fuel costs increase, savings lose their purchasing power. For ordinary families, this creates a slow but constant strain. A salary that once covered rent, groceries, and utilities now struggles to cover even the basics. In markets across the country, prices change rapidly. Shopkeepers adjust labels frequently because the cost of goods keeps rising. For young people trying to build a future, the situation is even more challenging. Finding stable employment has become harder, while the cost of living continues to climb. Many graduates discover that the jobs available cannot support the life they imagined. Economic pressure does not explode overnight. It builds quietly, month after month, year after year, until eventually the frustration begins to surface. By late 2025, that frustration began to spill into the streets. Across multiple cities, people started gathering to express their anger over rising costs, corruption allegations, and economic hardship. Protests are not new in Iran. The country has experienced waves of demonstrations before. But what makes recent events different is the combination of economic pressure and growing public frustration. Crowds have appeared in major cities and smaller towns alike. Some demonstrations begin peacefully, people chanting, holding signs, or simply gathering to show dissatisfaction. Others become tense as security forces arrive. When protests spread across multiple regions at once, governments often see them as a direct challenge to authority, and that is when situations can escalate quickly. Because once a protest movement gains momentum, controlling it becomes increasingly difficult. Every arrest, every confrontation, every viral video can amplify emotions on both sides. The result is a cycle that can push tensions higher with each passing day. In moments like these, governments face a difficult decision: allow protests to continue, risking further escalation, or intervene forcefully, risking international criticism and domestic anger. Iran's leadership has historically chosen strong enforcement to maintain stability. Security forces are often deployed to disperse demonstrations and restore order. In recent months, reports have described arrests, clashes, and increased police presence in protest areas. Authorities argue that strict measures are necessary to prevent chaos. From their perspective, stability is essential. Iran sits in one of the most volatile regions in the world. A weakened government could trigger consequences far beyond its borders, but for protesters, these crackdowns can intensify feelings of injustice. Every confrontation deepens the divide between citizens demanding change and leaders determined to preserve control. And when that divide grows, the political atmosphere becomes even more fragile. In the modern era, protests no longer exist only in the streets. They also unfold online. Videos, images, and messages spread rapidly across social media platforms. Within minutes, an event in one city can become known around the world. This creates a new challenge for governments attempting to control unrest. Information moves faster than authorities can respond. In response, internet restrictions sometimes become part of the strategy. During periods of heightened tension, connectivity can be reduced or limited. The goal is often to slow the spread of protest coordination and viral content. But internet shutdowns come with their own consequences. Businesses that rely on online payments or digital services suddenly struggle to operate. Freelancers and remote workers lose access to clients. Students and researchers lose access to information. In a world increasingly dependent on digital infrastructure, disconnecting from the internet can ripple through the entire economy. What begins as a political control measure can quickly become an economic disruption. While domestic pressures grow inside Iran, the country is also facing increasing pressure from abroad. Iran has long been at the center of geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. Its nuclear program, regional alliances, and strategic position near the Persian Gulf have made it a focal point of international politics. In 2026, those tensions remain high. The relationship between Iran, the United States, and Israel continues to shape the regional security environment. Military activity, strategic warnings, and occasional strikes contribute to a climate of uncertainty. For people living inside Iran, these tensions add another layer of anxiety. Economic hardship is difficult enough. But when the possibility of external conflict enters the picture, fear can spread quickly. History shows that geopolitical confrontation can amplify domestic instability. Sanctions intensify economic pressure. Military threats increase national security concerns, and the population often finds itself caught between internal struggles and external pressure. Taken individually, each of these challenges is significant. Economic instability, public protests, government crackdowns, information restrictions, international tensions. But what makes the current moment so complex is that all of these forces are happening simultaneously. Economic pressure fuels protests. Protests trigger security responses. Security responses create international scrutiny. International tensions intensify economic pressure. It becomes a feedback loop. A system where every problem strengthens the others. For Iran, the coming years may depend on how these pressures evolve. Will economic conditions stabilize? Will reforms reduce public frustration? Or will tensions continue to escalate? At this stage, the answer remains uncertain. Iran is not just any country. It sits at the crossroads of energy markets, global trade routes, and regional power dynamics. The Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil shipping lanes, lies along its southern coast. Any instability in the region can influence global energy prices. Political developments inside Iran can also affect neighboring countries and alliances across the Middle East. In other words, what happens in Iran rarely stays confined within its borders. It often sends ripple effects across the global system. That is why the world continues to watch closely, because Iran's future could shape the geopolitical landscape far beyond its own territory. At first glance, Iran may appear resilient. The government remains in control. The economy continues to function. Cities remain active, but beneath that surface lies a complicated reality. Economic pressure is growing. Public frustration is rising. Political tensions are intensifying, and international dynamics continue to evolve. History shows that when multiple pressures converge at the same time, countries can reach critical turning points. Sometimes those moments lead to reform. Sometimes they lead to deeper instability. For Iran, the story is still unfolding. The protests, the economic pressures, and the geopolitical tensions are all chapters of a much larger narrative. And the next chapter may determine not only Iran's future, but the stability of an entire region. Because when a nation at the center of global politics begins to shift, the consequences rarely remain local. They echo across the world, and right now, Iran stands at one of those pivotal moments. The question is not just what happens next. The question is how far the ripple effects will reach.